Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. So, today I'm back in the game room because I decided to do a little bit more of a fun video. Something that's a little bit different than what I've been doing recently. So, it's been a long time since I've made any kind of countdown video or a least favorite to or most favorite video. So, I was kind of thinking about this after receiving some of my most recent figures. I'm like, well, darn, these things are gorgeous. Great fighting pose. For serviceability purposes, as action figures, that is their primary responsibility, right? To be playable toys. And I'm like, darn, with so many great figures, what would be my top 10 favorite figures? Well, oddly enough, coming out to 10 figures was kind of hard. Who would have known? So I decided to go with the top 15. Now, I laid them out to the best of my ability because, let's be honest, I could film this video, wait 5 minutes, come back down here, film this exact same video all over again, and these guys could be completely scattered based on where I had them then compared to now. So, but I think you're also going to find that many of these figures, there's very little color detail in many of them, which is fine. I think these are basically were selected or put in the order that I've chosen based on playability and fighting pose. You know, a lot of people, they make these customs. I mean, if you're making a resin LJN figure, that's fine, because those are legitimate statues. You know, you put on your shelf, you put on your fireplace mantle, it displays great, it serves its purpose as decoration. You got that painting on your wall, here's your wall of customs, right? But what a lot of people fail to do is realize that their intended purpose is play. They're action figures. Action figures are playable toys. Simple. It's a simple thing to contemplate, but I don't know. So I just kind of picked out the figures I really enjoyed. Hopefully you guys agree with my list, or at least, you know, a lot of the selections I made. So, I don't think I'm going to spend any, good reasonable amount of time on each individual figure. 15 different characters to look at. I kind of want to get this done in about 20-25 minutes. But I thought it'd be a fun video for you guys. And I think this would really stir up a lot of enjoyment for a lot of people, as well as, you know, build up a lot of conversation. I haven't been getting a lot of videos with that massive level of conversation, so I think this would be a nice little surprise for folks. Number 15. So, when I first did my favorite LJN tournament, I contemplated whether or not I wanted to include this particular figure. I didn't choose him in that competition because to me he wasn't LJN, and it wouldn't be prudent to do my favorite LJN tournament and have a Hasbro figure as part of it. So, coming at number 15 is the Hasbro Mail-Away of Sergeant Slaughter. Now, I think, to me, in all honesty, if Sergeant Slaughter Hasbro was actually a part of that tournament, I think this figure would have absolutely run away with the entire tournament. I don't think Bruiser Brody would have even defeated this figure. The Sergeant Slaughter Hasbro is perfect. I mean, this is like an unbelievably well-made figure. And I'm not surprised. I mean, Hasbro comes out with some of the most amazing products. His fighting pose is absolutely sensational. He's got that awesome, you know, cartoon G.I. Joe face appearance. Yeah, they make him muscular and, you know, built like John Cena. But, you know, I think that's because with the G.I. Joe and, you know, everyone's supposed to be like super ripped to be a service member, which we know service members don't naturally look like this. They look like I think that the fighting pose is immaculate. I love the color scheme throughout. And this is what I was talking about when I was looking at the Big Rubber Guys version of Sergeant Slaughter. It was so rushed, in my opinion. And I think that this was something that was worked on. You know, the schematics were probably done over the course of many weeks, even months, because it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Fighting pose is great. The way that the legs kind of curve, it makes it perfect for that under bottom body slam that I love. As a playable wrestling action figure, I think this is one of the most elite figures you'll ever find. One of my highest grades. Absolutely love this figure, and coming at number 15 is sad, but at least he's on the list. I think that's important. Coming at number 14, this figure comes from original San Francisco toy makers. And you could really use either character, but still, trying to think, who was it? I think it was Billy Ray. Not Billy Ray. Billy Ray. Who am I to kidding? Okay, so sorry, I had to sneeze, and you know how I don't like doing that on camera. Where was I? Oh, from Harlem Heat. I think this one was Stevie Ray, if I'm not mistaken. I don't. I swear to God, I almost called this guy Ray Charles. I mean, I've probably chosen like different names for this guy. Just having those little brain cramps where you kind of forget simple answers or whatever. This could be Booker T, could be Steve. I don't remember which one was which, to be honest. I didn't really follow WCW, especially Harlem Heat. So this is one of those figures I was talking about in previous videos. When I'm talking about the Greg Valentine LJN with the fist up. And yeah, that video is still doing. I'm going to make that video probably not after this one, but maybe after the following one. Where we look at all the figures that have that particular pose. Because the original San Francisco toy line are much thicker figures, they're not as big as LJN, which kind of sucks because you can't, actually wrestle them with your LJNs. Scales all off, and that's not good. So you really can only use these for original San Francisco on original San Francisco. But think of it this way: you have David Galoob, who had these small 4-inch figures with particular stances, and generally used the same characters over and over again, maybe sometimes switched out the color scheme, as we saw with the UK exclusives. So when Galoob, went out of business and, they formed original San Francisco toy makers, this right here kind of still with the same thing, with those statue-esque figures, hardened bodies. They tried to go off the success of LJN by raising the size of the figures, whereas I think the Galoob was kind of going off. I don't know. Did Galoob come out before? I don't think Galoob came out before Hasbro, even though they both came out in 1990. But I'm assuming Galoob or Hasbro came out first, so they were making their 4-inch figures, kind of imitating that, and then they kind of went back to the 80s with LJN and made something very similar. Unmovable figures, find the right pose, using very popular poses like Stevie Ray and like Greg Valentine from LJN. Fantastic figure, one of the most enjoyable figures to bash around back and forth. I never had these as a kid, so when I goof off and play with them for like 2 seconds, those 2 seconds mean a lot because these particular figures are solid. And, here's like, I think this is Booker T, and they just reutilize the same characters over and over again. They just different paint schemes. Blue, purple, red, black. I have all of the variants, and they just mirror the figures. So, Harlem Heat. Amazing. Coming at number 13 is Jerry Sags. So, for, in my opinion, an unknown company, because I don't think many people know about original San Francisco. That's why whenever you list something from original San Francisco, it gets very few bids or even very few views. And if you're going to have to list something, you have to list, like if I had this figure on card, probably a $30 to $40 figure in my opinion. But you put it on auction for like 99 cents with like, you're going to have to do like a $3 or $4 shipping price in order for it to get substantial bids. Otherwise, if you list it for like, let's say $9 shipping and put it at $5 purchase price or starting bid, you're not going to get any hits on this, and which it sucks because it's a fantastic figure. In my opinion, one of the top 15 greatest wrestling action figures ever made, and you're sticking with that Greg Valentine pose, which is fantastic. So, Jerry Sags from original San Francisco, they definitely have done well with many of their figures. Alright. Am I missing a figure? Nope, I'm not. So, we had Sergeant Slaughter at number 15. We had Stevie Ray at 14. Booker T at 13. But, I mean, shoot, they're both the same figure, just, switching it around. Number 12 and number 11. From Grapplers and Gimmicks. Yes, I love the Mo figure. I said that Mo could potentially be one of the greatest Hasbro style figures ever, but I didn't really imagine I would put him on a list of some of my favorite all-time figures, regardless of toy line. Some of the positives is actually something that I might consider negative. With the hands in tight like that, I hate that. With the Mattel Retros, but the way they have their hands are like this, and it's like their elbows are touching their side. It's if you're a kid and you're trying to, it's no fun. Yes, Mo's hands are in tight, but they're kind of like in boxer form, So he has his hands, that's what it looks like. Kind of like reminds me of like Virgil. Virgil used to dance around the ring, throw his punches and whatnot. Because he was promoted to be like a boxer or amateur boxer or something, I don't know. So that's fun. I like his hands are far apart, which makes it a solid playable figure. And even though they're small, it's still very highly playable. He's not as big as characters like Mabel or Yokozuna, but he does have nice bulk to him, and I love the bulky figures. Great positive look, and because he's one of those characters that you really don't think about. He's not a mega superstar, and if you didn't actually watch wrestling, or watch a lot of wrestling, or continue to watch wrestling throughout like 80s, 90s, you would have no idea who this is. I very vaguely remember Mo, and the name Men on a Mission. If you'd asked me who was Mabel and his group in the 1990s, before these figures came out, I would have drawn a blank. I would have had no idea. If you start throwing out names and, you came across Men on a Mission, I'm like, oh, shoot, yeah. I think Mabel or Mo is a perfect figure, and to get him in this top 15 list, incredible. And I think one of the reasons I had to create a top 15, because out of the top 10, and I think this is one I definitely wanted to include, somehow I think I may have messed up my hold on a minute, guys. I'm sorry. You need to put that there. I somehow messed this up. Alright. Redo. I guess with the little chair I'm sitting on as I move forward, I kind of nudged the figures out of order, and that's why I had that Harlem Heat figures listed twice. I pulled out the figures just to kind of show you the different poses. Alright, bear with me, guys. I know, so unprofessional of me. Number 15. Number 14. Doesn't matter, they're the same figures. Number 13. And Mo was number 12. At number 11, back to David Galoob and the Galoob family. The Galoob Series 1 of Butch Reed. I never even knew of this figure existed until 2021, the tail end of 2021, when I started collecting. And I had always known for like years, probably a decade and a half or more, at some point I knew I wanted to go back and recollect all the Hasbros I had as a kid. I didn't have to get the whole collection. So you're probably looking at like 15 figures, 16, 17 figures, something like that. And I wanted those, because I'm pretty sure I could have remembered the particular figures I had as a kid. And then I ended up going full force and going for everything. And I'm like, you know what, Galoob, I absolutely hated the Galoob figures. I thought they were terrible. But I had them as a kid, and they didn't have that many, so I'm like, you know what? I thought it would be an easy line to collect. Let me get them. And when I came across the Butch Reed figure, I'm like, man, that's... I don't think I was even that influenced by the original figure. I think it was probably closer to when I started completing the collection or nearing completion of the collection when I really took notice of the figure and really got a great sense of pride and enjoyment from this particular figure. If you know, look at the SD Jones from LJN. This is a very similar figure. You know, SD Jones has that left arm up, kind of like a choke slam. The right arm is a little bit down, but good for like uppercuts and, you know, small punches and whatnot. And so, even though the right arm is more up than SD Jones, it still looks very similar, right? How could I love the SD Jones figure and not love the Butch Reed? And you compare Butch Reed to that of Ron Simmons, night and day. I mean, not even night and day. It's not even the same galaxy. It's so far different. I mean, Ron Simmons could very well be the worst action figure ever created. And here I've got Butch Reed in the top 11 of greatest action figures, at least greatest wrestling action figures ever made. So, solid all-around piece. Number 10. Another figure I never knew about as a kid. And he eventually replaced the Series 2 Ultimate Warrior. So, the Series 3 Ultimate Warrior is arguably one of the most perfect wrestling action figures ever created. You know, it depends on who you ask. I'm sure this would be the number one, not just number one Hasbro, but number one figure, period. So, like I said, the open hand, you know, Power Slam Ultimate Warrior from Series 2, I had that one. I had the Series 1 as a kid. So, yeah, that Series 2 was always the, you know, played with Ultimate Warrior figure. I never knew of this. Here's one of those figures I never saw until I started collecting. And even though the prices for a lot of Hasbro figures have been dropping, once upon a time, this figure would easily go for $75 to $100. And we're only talking like 2021, 2022, right? So, by the middle of 2023 and onward, this has become basically a $30 to $40 figure, and that sucks. It's still one of the greatest action figures of all time, and the look, aesthetics of it is fantastic. I mean, the guy has like dual working actions. You know, very few figures actually come with multiple action features. So his play pose, you know, an overall look is very similar to that of Series 10, the Giant Gonzalez, or your Series 5 Skinner. Because they're all basically the same figure-ish, I decided to go with the Purple Warrior, and so you won't be seeing those two in there, but you could have. They're both fantastic figures. A couple of the greatest figures from Hasbro. All right. We are on number 9. When I talk about Hasbro, or when I talk about wrestling action figures, this is probably the greatest figure of my childhood. It's coming at number 9 is Series 4 Bret Hart. Yeah, when I do my top 10 favorite Hasbro figures of all time, the Series 8 figure is on my list, and Series 4 only gets a special mention. But the Series 4, I chose this figure because I actually had a Series 4 as a kid. This is actually right there with Undertaker and Sid Vicious. And 2 non-wrestling figures. You know, the Panther Thundercats and the Bigfoot Harry and the Hendersons figures. I mean, I think those got as much use as any other wrestling figure. Absolutely love this figure. And, you know, perfect fighting pose. Just like that of a Hulk Hogan from Series 3. I don't know if it's identical, though. I think this one might have arms out a little bit further. So, when I went with this particular pose, I could have gone with Hulk Hogan or I could have gone with Bret Hart. I think if I were to decide which one I liked better, you know, based on character, yeah, it's Hogan. If I based on color scheme, I think the Series 3 Hogan I would choose over the Series 4 Bret. But again, the Series 8 Bret is the same thing, but better colors. Lights out. One of the most enjoyable figures. When I talk about grip of the figures, right? The grip and the feel of the figure is always imperative. The reason you're going to see so many Galoobs and Hasbros on this list is because as playable action figures designed for kids, nowadays, because there's so many freaking collectors and so many of these figures are coming back up for adults who've had them when they were kids, these aren't used for play. So, like, for most people, they don't really care about play pose because they're basically just doing nothing more than displaying these figures. Am I playing with these figures? No. Am I enjoying them? Of course, as display pieces, but at the same time, I still covet the play pose, right? And I think based on feel and pose, this was an absolute killer figure. You get so many Galoobs and Hasbros on this list because small kids have small hands, right? I couldn't imagine being 8 years old and trying to play with the LJNs because they were just way too big. I mean, I got small hands as an adult, so I think they're perfect for me now. But like as an 8-year-old, I couldn't imagine having LJNs. I mean, I would never be able to hold them upright or play with them the right way, I don't think. The 4-inch figures were definitely perfect for that regard. So, coming in at number 8. Yeah, number 8. So, I decided to go with this character because he is a big, puffy dude. And what more can I say? Toys Giant Haystacks. I'm disappointed in myself. I mean, I feel like everybody, when they sell something particular, they have regrets. I think I've had both. A blue and black Giant Haystacks. You know, they were duplicate carded figures. I probably sold both of them. And you probably sell them for like $45, $60, something like that. And me, I don't understand because, yeah, I still have a blue version and a brown variant on card, so I really didn't need the duplicates. But what do I like? I like having loose figures to go along with the carded figures. And me already having both figures on card, why didn't I just pop them open and keep them? Because what happens? You go back later on and you can't find the loose figures. And if you want the loose figures, you got to buy them from the UK. And that's going to cost you about $80 or $90 to purchase some figures. And another $30 for shipping. And that doesn't even include taxes. So the seller I bought a couple of my Rush collectibles from, I also bought a figure from him for this. So essentially, I was looking at like $70 per figure. And knowing that I was going to open up this figure, I mean, it killed me to have to spend $70 on it for that purpose. That's why I try to find them loose, but I just said, you know what, forget it. Let's just go for it. He's got an awesome robe accessory. You know, nice fur. Extremely smooth and soft. Great Husky figure. If you look at Giant Haystacks, you know, he's a UK wrestler, and the man was huge. Kind of like your uncle... was it Uncle Elmer? Was that his name? Along with, like, Hillbilly Jim and a couple other, you know, Hillbilly family members. I don't remember all the characters. But, really Husky guy. And, again, back to the feel and play of the figure. You could sit there with, like, your Hasbro Yokozuna kind of batting back and forth. And these guys would just clash so well. And they were, you know, clashes and fight, not clashes. And separate, not working well in tandem. But that's a Giant Haystacks. He is my number 8 figure. Coming in at, no, what did I say? Yeah, number 7. Now this right here kills me, putting him at number 7 and not somewhere in the top 5. Whether it was number 1 or number 5, doesn't matter. As long as he's in the top 5, I think it would be great. But I had to drop him a little bit. So I've got Grapplers and Gimmicks, the Mabel character. I could chose this Mabel. I could chose his variant. I could have chose the one where he's got gold or the King Mabel. Yeah, I'm thinking Grapplers and Gimmicks are really overextending themselves, creating the same character over and over again. But Mabel is, again, a perfect figure. Great bulkiness. A figure that bleeds in beautifully with your big Husky figures, like the Hasbro Yokozuna, or like, I don't know, King Kong Bundy. I don't have a loose King Kong Bundy from Zombie Sailors. I think that figure could have potentially made this list, maybe. Oddly enough, no Zombie Sailor is on this list, but you have multiple grapplers and gimmicks. And I don't think grapplers and gimmicks, their figures are better than Zombie Sailors, so that's kind of odd. It just shows that the certain figures they do have made work high quality. I kind of said Mabel is like this, was made from like clay or something. He's got like a very weird look to it. Not kind of like that glossiness or, kind of like that shininess that you get from like a Hasbro, right? So I always kind of look at figures that are kind of like in this make, right? And when you look at figures like this, it's like, you want to say that it's poorly done, but it's not as pleasing aesthetically based on that look. But a number 7 figure. Think about the tens of thousands of wrestling action figures that have been made over the course of different toy lines. And for me to classify Grapplers and Gimmicks Mabel as number 7 greatest action figure ever made, you know that company's doing something right. So I'm pleased in that regard. Mabel, number 7. Number 6. Another character that I never knew of growing up. Or maybe I did, I just didn't know, can't remember him. I definitely never had this figure as a kid. Not until I started collecting as an adult. Series 1, Barry Windom. You could choose Series 2, Barry Windom. It doesn't matter. Black or blue trunks, whichever one you prefer. The Barry Windom, again, like your Greg Valentine from LJN. I love that hand positioning. So good. One of the best fighting poses of any action figure. And I think that's why so many companies utilize this particular pose. When you look at Hasbro and you look at the Mattel Retros, they got these figures with the right extended arms. You wind them up and they clothesline you. I think that those poses, because the way that they're kind of hand up like so, it's reminiscent to this. I think that's the Hasbro and Mattel Retro version of this particular pose. Highly sought after pose, very valuable. Some of the best figures are utilizing this pose. And we've seen Harlem Heat already. We've seen Jerry Sags with this pose. And arguably one of the best playable figures. And I said Sid Vicious and Barry Windom are probably, if you had those two figures among Galoob and didn't have any other Galoob figures, you'd be set, because those two figures work so well in tandem as playable figures, as opponents. You couldn't do any worse. You would always have enjoyment with those figures. Putting the title on back and forth or whatnot. Now, for me, all my figures get belts, so you're not really changing the belts on anybody. Number 6. That was number 6. Coming in at number 5. We saw a very similar figure earlier. And which figure were we looking at? We were looking at I believe at number 12, I want to say, was the Butch Reed. Oh, God. Forgot. So Butch Reed was number 12. And here at number 5, LJN, we got SD Jones. I've always said, if you're looking for an LJN figure that is a go-to playable figure, no other figure gives me more enjoyment than the SD Jones. He has that choke slam, power slam. He's got the arm out enough so you can throw some good punches. You can still do a right arm under for a good body slam, or a left arm under and bring him over the shoulder for a solid body slam pose. Great figure. I mean, obviously, I prefer the yellow shirt over the red shirt, but this is just the one I grabbed as duplicate figure. Absolutely love this figure. Kind of sad that SD Jones, because he was such a loyal employee of Vince McMahon Sr. and then later on Vince McMahon Jr., he got his opportunity to, showcase his talents in WrestleMania 2. No, not WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 1. But what sucked about WrestleMania 1 is the famous King Kong Bundy match where he was pinned in 9 seconds. It was actually a lot more than 9 seconds, but that was the record or whatnot. How can a man really showcase his talents on a big platform when you got basically a little, what do I call it? Not a grudge match. I forget what the battles are called. When they're just basically pinned in less than 2 minutes. Anyways, SD Jones is, yeah, he may be your enhancement talent worker or whatnot, but a man that appeared in WrestleMania 1, a man that got multiple releases among the LJN line, a line that is notorious for releasing basically one figure only. Very few figures got duplicates, and to get 2 of them in the same series, you know that he was a coveted character, a beloved member of not the roster, but the WWE family, I guess. And like I said, as playable figures go, this is probably the most pristine figure I enjoy more than anything. Number 5, I think it's very fitting. Coming in at number 4. SD Jones might be my most favorite go-to figure, but I think if you had to deal with bulk, if you had to deal with colors and design, playability, name recognition, Kamala. There's probably 3, I don't know, the Big John Studd and Kamala, in both of my favorite LJN tournaments, they both have made it to the semifinals each time. The first time I used Big John Studd to move forward to the finals. The second time I changed things up and I went with Kamala to defeat Big John Studd. Both of them are perfect figures, and it's really hard for me to put a number on a lot of these guys. Like I said that Kamala was my number 4 favorite figure among the LJN line. And here he is listed number 4 among my all-time favorite figures, period. So, he's getting his respect and whatnot. But this could very well be a number 1 LJN figure. I just can't decide on all of these. I try to make my best decision, but a lot of the time I think I'm pretty much, hey, I like this guy number 1, I like this guy number 2, and I pretty much stick with it. Like my top 5 LJN, I think I will always keep them in order for that particular reason, but I just enjoy using Kamala so much, and because of the weight and the size of the figure, he's not someone who could go up against like an Andre the Giant and be thrown around like a little rag doll. I feel like this is somebody that could easily stand toe to toe with them. I want to release that video I made back in February, where I did my Royal Rumble, and I just had so much fun making that Rumble. I just want to do it for myself, just to kind of goof off and see how these things work. I don't wrestle these guys normally, and I've been watching a lot of wrestling matches on people's channels, and I'm like, you know what, I want to have some fun. I want to goof off myself, and I made an hour 10 minute video. So, but I just gotta learn how to edit or something if I ever decide to post a video. Kamala is just so much fun, man. I don't know what to say about these guys other than how much enjoyment and pleasure a person could get from them. Number 3. My number 3 favorite go-to figure or playable figure. If you don't think that Kamala could be the number 1 or have the greatest fighting pose ever, this guy definitely has to. Like I always say that Big John Studd is my favorite LJN figure, at least among my favorite original LJNs. I say that Kamala probably has the most attributes, and with play pose and girth and whatnot, one of the most enjoyable go-to figures. But I think, based on the way that his hands are positioned, this has got to be the single greatest fighting pose ever. So I think I give a lot of credit to Hulk Hogan in that regard, and it's got to be a Series 1 Hulk Hogan. I don't care the value of a Series 5 Hogan. Yeah, Series 5 Hogan could be valued at like $70 to $150, depending on condition. Where, based on condition, this could be essentially a $5 to $30 figure. And he really has to be mint. And a person has to be really desperate to pick one up if they're going to pay $30 on this. just because it's more common and not as valuable, we're looking at it as playable figures, not value-based. And playability, nothing could be more fun than having the immortal Hulk Hogan, right? Many of our favorite wrestler of all time, a true legend. To me, I think Hulk Hogan is to WWF what Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire was to baseball. If you didn't have, that home run challenge going on, trying to beat Roger Maris's home run record, would the fans really have come back so soon after the strike? Strike ended in 94, 95. So, a few years later, baseball was booming again because of the home run prowess of the two superstars. And Hulk Hogan, he couldn't get his lick in AWA. They brought him over to WWF, and you know what? I don't think a better decision could have ever been made. I think I have Hogan listed as my number 2 favorite LJN, but I think it's play pose based. Again, his look is very simple. That's why I like figures like Outback Jack. Outback Jack has all this extra decoration on his, his vest and pants and boots and stuff. They got the removable accessory. So, a very simple figure, but, come on. The Hulk Hogan LJN has to be on anybody's list for most playable or enjoyable figure. Number 2 and number 1 was a huge toss-up for me, and I really struggled to make a decision. Regardless of what I say in this video, I think number 2... Well, actually, let me bring it up first. My number 2 all-time favorite wrestling action figure, Galoob Sid Vicious. I know everybody is shaking their head or their mouth is hitting the ground right now because for the existence of my YouTube channel, I have always said that Sid Vicious was my most beloved figure from childhood and continued to be my all-time favorite figure to this day. So, what action figure could actually defeat Sid Vicious Galoob, which has always been my all-time favorite figure? We know Undertaker Hasbro is not in this list. We know that the Series 4 Bret has already been shown. If it's not any of the LJNs, well, our Equipian LJN. Is it another Hasbro? Well, we saw Bret Hart, we saw Ultimate Warrior. What's left, really? Purple Crush? Possibly. I don't know, Skinner I like a lot. I like the fighting pose of Honky Tonk Man. Great fighting pose, great look with the aesthetics on there, and an accessory. Maybe he could be number 1. Another toy line completely. I don't know. So, Sid Vicious, I think because of this particular look, that's why I kind of fell on Big John Studd as my favorite LJN. This was always a go-to action figure. Whenever I did have individual matches, this was one of the more played with figures. When I had Royal Rumbles, he was always a dominant force. I loved his pose. I love the fact that he was like this hardened plastic or hardened rubber that if he fell on the ground, you weren't holding your breath because unlike the Hasbros, these things weren't going to break off. Arms break off or fingers or something. Fantastic look, especially considering that 1990 design doesn't exactly mesh up with 2024 technology, but come on. Even a 1990 base, this is still a fantastic figure. If this particular figure was first created today, people would jump on this. This is it's a perfect wrestling action figure. He has what I really like about a lot of the LJNs, like Hogan, Studd, Kamala, Andre. They got legs spread apart with the knees kind of bent a little bit, and that gives you that perfect body slam pose or to be body slam posed. With the arms out, you always throw those beautiful punches. Perfect body slam up from both ends. It's just a very evenly balanced figure. Not a lot of color scheme to it, which sets it back, but this is his uniform, his outfit in the ring, so it's done extremely well. And again, I said that Galoob may have been one of my least favorite toy lines, but I've got 3 different figures on this top 15 list, and for the longest time, a Galoob figure was my number one figure. And even after this video, I'm still going to say Sid Vicious is probably my all-time favorite figure. Even though I put him at number 2 here, you know, I'm still going to classify him as number 1, regardless. But I think I went with Yokozuna at number 1. So, Yokozuna as number 1 for a multitude of reasons. 1, Hasbro. Well, that doesn't mean anything. You could slap a sticker on any toy, call it a Hasbro. It doesn't make it worth anything. I mean, we're not talking about, like, iPhones here or something. You know, slap a Apple sticker on a brick and call it an iPhone. No. But it is, so for a real Hasbro figure, a beloved character, an absolute dominant force in any matchup. I mean, he did these. I mean, imagine getting power slammed by Yokozuna. Him drag you over to the turnbuckle and does his little. What was it? What was it called? Sumo flop or something? I don't remember. I'm sure it's on one of the Hasbro cards. I didn't check. Whatever. So, kind of like looking at the way that his rump is standing out. When you actually kind of look at it, it looks like he's literally sitting on the person. And it's perfect. That is his finishing touch. And that is a great finisher and a fantastic design. And he's also known for dropping a leg, right? When you look at the leg, the way that it situates beautifully. You look at any of the Hasbro Hulk Hogan figures, his leg drop is his finisher. But when you kind of look at it as a kid or right now, and you look at that leg drop, it doesn't situate on the body the way it should, the way it does with Yokozuna. This figure has about as much weight to it as any other action figure I've ever held in my hand, and that is absolute killer. That weight, the fact that he is his own sculpture, no other figure has this body design. A fantastic, you know, this right here, to me, is one of the simplest action features, and I love it. You know, not like the stupid, you know, head punching with like Rick Rude and 1-2-3 Kid and Ric Flair and all that. With the way that the arms are extended far out, great play pose. I mean, absolutely fantastic, perfect. I would say, you know, body slam pose. Good look, great character. I mean, of course, Yokozuna deserves to be the greatest figure ever made. I mean, it only makes sense. I say that Yokozuna is the greatest figure ever made. I'm probably still going to say that Sid Vicious is my all-time favorite figure, regardless. Again, this figure, after all, it is my George Washington, so. But that is my top 15, guys. Hopefully, you guys got a kick out of this video. And honestly, like I said, this figure can do no wrong. There's no imperfections. Everything is sculpted beautifully. It handles well. It plays well. It looks great. There is nothing better. Alright, so this was kind of like an unexpected video because I really wasn't planning on making this video, or at least not anytime soon, but I plan on filling in the videos this week, so I think this would be a nice little addition. Oh, what was it, Friday? Did I get this on Friday, or did I get this on like Wednesday or something? I think Friday the 1st I got this figure in. It doesn't matter. So this is a Bob Cardona figure. Bob Cardona. So I looked him up because I thought he was like Matt Cardona's father or something. And when you actually look at it, it actually says Matt Cardona on the shirt. And so I was looking at this, and I'm like, hold on a minute. Is Matt Cardona older than I think he is? Because I was thinking Matt Cardona was like 38 or something, you know, maybe 40, I don't know. But looking at this guy, he looks like he's about, you know, 50, 60, something. And I'm like, could it be Matt Cardona's dad? I tried looking it up, Bob Cardona or Robert Cardona, and it says he's some kind of like animator, you know, sketch artist. But he could be Matt Cardona's father. And I think that's pretty cool. We got this off of Grapplers and Gimmicks, which I'm actually very surprised, because if they were going to make the father of Matt Cardona, I would think that it would come from, his Major Wrestling Figure podcast shop, and not Hasbro Toys. But either way, it was unique. No carded figure. They only had a loose figure available. I guess they just made a few loose figures, see if it would sell, and they might come out with a carded figure later on. I don't know. But again, it's another Hasbro toy figure, so I have to add to the Grapplers and Gimmicks collection. And it's a really solid look. I'm not going to use this as no playable action figure, but it's got a great, nice look to it. Decent fighting pose. Hands in a little bit too much, kind of like the white shirt Godwin. What the heck was his name? The Hog Man. No. Henry Godwin was the Hog Man. So he was the Pig Man. I don't remember what his name was. I don't know if you can see it, but it's down there. So, Bob Cardona. Nothing to do with this. I just wanted to show it off because I didn't show it off in my one of my previous videos where I was kind of doing a quick look over of some of my recent acquisitions. Alright, fellas, thank you so much for watching. This is going to conclude today's episode. Hopefully it was enjoyable. If you do like the video, please let me know, who you would have chosen or where you would have put these particular characters. I love hearing what your opinions are. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, everybody.